Welcome to the Awards Heaven podcast. I'm Rob LaCuria.
I'm Charlie Bright.
And I'm Tony Ruiz.
And today we are going to be talking about a range of topics, starting with our reactions to the Tony Award nominations that have just come out recently. We'll also regale you with stories about what we're watching. And then we're going to do a deep dive into the best drama supporting actor contenders this year. Just like we did the women last week, it's now time to talk about the men. And then we're going to do our top 5 all-time favorite or best Emmy-winning drama supporting actors. I wonder if there's going to be any overlap. We'll see. Okay, guys, I'm really curious to know what you thought or think about the Tony Award nominations. Charlie, take us through your highs and lows, the good, the bad, the ugly.
I was very surprised that Schmigadoon got was tied for the most with 12 nominations, tied with The Lost Boys, which I didn't think was going to perform that well because I think the reviews have been mid at best. But no surprise that Ragtime snagged the most of any musical revival, and that Death of a Salesman is the most nominated play of the year. I think it's kind of hard to handicap this best musical race. The Lost Boys, Schmigadoon, Titanic, and Two Strangers carry a cake across New York. I really have no clue as to what is ahead. My guess is probably either Schmigadoon or Two Strangers. Overall, with the acting nominations, a lot of what we thought would get in got in. Very happy for Luke Evans getting in for Rocky Horror in lead actor in a musical. Also, very happy for Rachel Dratch getting in for featured actress, which I was predicting she would get in. Very interestingly, she is up against her former SNL co-star Anna Gasteyer, who
Oh,
is up for Schmigadoon. So that'll be a very interesting race. I adore both of them, and Anna Gasteyer is just one of the nicest people ever. Um, Also, I was very surprised in terms of omissions. I was very surprised that one other nomination I love, June Squibb is now the oldest Tony Award nominee. She's nominated for Marjorie Prime, and how awesome would that be to see her win her first Tony
oh,
Award at age 96? And she was doing
yeah.
8 shows a week at age 96. Like, she's
How?
unbelievable. Yeah, it's
Shit.
I hope to be like that when I'm in my 70s, let alone 90s if I even make it.
Yeah.
Please, I hope to be like that now.
That's so true, man. Oh, what's a
It's crazy.
secret?
But in terms of what I found the most shocking snubs, it for me it wasn't Leah Michelle. I honestly don't care about her.
Oh.
Um, for me, it was Jim Parsons not making it into featured actor in a musical for Titanic. Also, and the fact that Leighton Williams was the only person from Titanic to get in the
Mm.
featured categories. Not only did he beat out Jim Parsons, but he also beat out what's his name who wrote the book, Constantine
Constantine Rassouli.
Rassouli, yes, Constantine Rassouli. He was excellent also in that show, and so the fact that Leighton Williams got in before both of them was very shocking to me. And I was very shocked that Sam Pinkleton, who is the reigning champion for Best Direction of Play for directing Oh Mary last year, did not get a nomination for Rocky Horror. I thought that was amazingly put together, and I really thought that he would be a no-brainer in that direction category. But shows you what I know.
Hey Tony, before I go to you, there was just one thing that occurred to me with these nominations because honestly, like I'm not as clued in with Broadway as you guys are, and a lot of the shows I see, of course, are playing across the other side of the planet. But in Best Original Score, I found it really interesting that Death of a Salesman made it in over other shows, including The Queen of Versailles couldn't even make it into that. Like that's how much they really hated that show. I found that like what an awful what a terrible thing to happen to a show like that. All these people who worked their asses off to make a show. Now, obviously, it wasn't very good, But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Okay, Tony, what about you?
I echo a lot of that. I mean, one of the things that was really interesting to me was not so much who got left off, because we always see, we see a lot of movie stars that go to Broadway. Sometimes they get nominated, sometimes they don't. Sorry, Adrian Brody. Sorry, Tessa Thompson. Um, I was kind of shocked that Stephanie Hsu got in for Rocky Horror, because it
Yeah.
was it was
Yeah.
it was quite interesting that she made that jump to lead. Which, at first I wasn't sure that was going to pay off, but apparently it did. Um, I also think that one of the things that it continues to be a through line is that if you play Happy Loman in Death of a Salesman, chances are you're not going to get nominated, because that seems to be a through line that. I remember very vividly that Ben Allers, who plays Happy in the current production with Nathan Lane, Nathan Lane gets nominated, Laurie Keane Metcalf gets nominated, Christopher Abbott gets nominated, but not Ben Allers, similar to pretty much every revival of Death of a Salesman that's happened. I was absolutely thrilled that Aya Cash got nominated for Giant.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought of both
Because,
of you when I saw that. Yeah,
because I mean, come on. First of all, Aya Cash. Second of all, I'm
that's it.
correct me if I'm wrong. Was that her Broadway debut in Giant? I don't know if
I
she's
don't
ever been on
know.
Broadway before. Um,
It's an amazing,
Yeah, I
yeah.
can't think of that either.
I
but
don't know, but
I'll
yeah,
look it
you
up.
no.
know, but it also says a lot, to your point, Rob. It says a lot about how kind of overall weak the musical categories were this year, because, out of five nominations, not only is Death of a Salesman nominated in original score, but the revival of August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone also got a score
Yeah.
nomination. And that is stunning. I think Joe Turner probably opened a little too late. Um, Otherwise, I think we might have seen, because the reviews, from what I read, were praising particularly Cedric the Entertainer. And for me, that was really shocking. He got just tremendous reviews in the lead role in an August Wilson play, which is, not for lightweights. That was that was a cool one for me. Um, I think for old theater queens like me, I'm so excited to see who comes out on top in the uh, best actor in a play, because I think everybody knows it's going to be either John Lithgow or it's going to be Nathan Lane. Um, and it's been fun to watch like message boards and things like that and see like how many people are predicting Lithgow and how many people are predicting Nathan Lane. Because I honestly don't know how you choose between those two performances. Um, so the Tony Awards are always a load of fun. Um, I've been watching them for pretty much my entire actually teenage and adult life. So, I'm always interested to see what's going to happen. My, I think one of the things that kind of makes me go, is the fact that Pink is hosting. That big
I
Broadway
actually think
presence,
that
Pink.
here's something. Here's the thing though. Pink is a quintessential showman in her, and
Yes.
she does productions. And I have a feeling she's also has a reverence for the theater as well. And so I actually think that she could actually low key maybe be, but we'll have to see how she does. But I think she has the potential to possibly shock us all and have us maybe begging her to come back next year.
Hope so. I really like
I would
To
like
your point,
that.
to your point, Rob, more in recent years, we have seen plays regularly get into the original score category. 2 years ago, Stereophonic got nominated
Yeah.
for Will Butler's original score from Arcade Fire. You also had the revival of The Rose Tattoo and The Inheritance get in. Um, So it's and Angels in America in 2018 got nominated in the original score category. So it's not as surprising now because it's a pretty regular occurrence.
Okay, that's interesting. My only final comment about the Tonys is I'm very happy to see Rose Byrne in there. Maybe she could win. I don't know. Probably not, but it's good to see Rose Byrne racking up those nominations across the board.
Also, to
That's a great category. That is a great category, and I don't think there's a front runner in that category.
How exciting.
I think
Um,
Leslie Manville might be the front runner in that.
she might be,
Hmm.
but with Liberation having just won the Pulitzer, I think Susanna Flood could also, you know, go through there. And by the way, speaking of, kind of just our beloved divas. It's rare when you get a Broadway record that is not held by Audra McDonald. But Kelly O'Hara has a distinction that Audra does not, and that is that for every role that Kelly O'Hara, for every kind of leading role that she has ever played on Broadway, she has gotten a Tony nomination for it. Every
Really?
single time.
Wow.
Also, shout out to Danny Burstein, who I believe is now the most nominated actor of all time. I believe this is his ninth nomination. Thank goodness he is already a winner. He won featured actor in a musical for Moulin Rouge in the COVID Tonys. But also, but to just jump off of your point, Tony, about lead actor in a play. You talk about Nathan Lane and John Lithgow, but those are situations that we've seen at award shows where if you have two really strong frontrunners, a third could come in
Mm-hmm.
and take it in and take the award. Although I don't know who it would be. My guess is it would either be Daniel Radcliffe for Every Brilliant Thing or Mark Strong for Oedipus.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that I think would kind of stand in the way for Daniel Radcliffe is, we've seen a lot of times that sometimes you know, those types of shows, like to me, the Daniel Radcliffe nomination is very similar to when Jonathan Groff was nominated for playing Bobby Darin. For playing Jonathan Groff as Bobby Darin. Um, it becomes like, is this an acting thing? And sometimes that can work against them. Um, but the Mark Strong of it all, he's been so close to winning so many times. And he's he didn't win. I remember he won the Olivier for A View from the Bridge in London, and then when that production came over, he was nominated and he lost to Frank Langella for The Father, the original Broadway production of that later went on to be the Anthony Hopkins movie. And I would love to see Mark Strong get one. Um, but I think, if Leslie Manville wins, I just dare somebody to take out a camera um, and film her while she's doing it. She is notorious for, she made a lot of headlines when she gets very irritated at people filming curtain calls. Um, she
Well, yeah,
she's kind of the
after what we
Patti
discussed last
LuPone
week.
of London theater.
Whoopi Goldberg just had a huge tirade on The View, I think, yesterday about that. And so I think hopefully people will start to realize that you just need to be a bit more respectful when you're watching live theater. That would be nice. You know what?
I honestly don't see the problem with doing it during curtain call.
No, I agree with
I mean,
curtain call. I think that's okay.
I don't see, because usually a lot of people are standing up in the audience anyhow. So
True, true, true.
yeah.
We'll circle back on the Tonys closer to the date so we can explain who we think should win and who we want to win. Okay, so let's put a pin in the Tonys for now and move on to television and maybe film, depending on what you've been watching. Okay, so I'll go first, and then I'm dying to hear what you guys have to say. So you both know that generally what happens with the three of us is we'll be watching something and we'll add it into the group chat. Oh my God, I've just watched this, or oh my God, I've just watched that. So I finally caught up with Monster, the Ed Gein story, and I have been really reluctant to even go there because it's just generally speaking, I'm kind of tired of misery porn and exploitative like murder shows and crime thrillers. But I gave it a go. And I'm sorry, this is probably not like I just loved it. I loved it. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really good. Now, of course, I do have some reservations about glamorizing someone like him. But what I loved about what Ryan Murphy and team and Ian Brennan did with this it's more about what Ed Gein represents in our pop culture and our fascination with that character and how Alfred Hitchcock was use that, as the basis for Psycho, and it goes on with other iterations as well. I thought that was so clever. It's a little jarring at first. You think, what are we doing? We're going back and forth, and I think I can understand why a lot of critics and fans didn't like the show, but I thought it was fantastic. And honestly, the acting's incredible. The music by Matt Quayle is just 10 out of 10. Yeah, I highly recommend it if you're into it. Silence of the Lambs is my favorite film of all time, probably equal tied with Interstellar. And so it was really nice just to understand more about the Ed Gein story, which I knew about, but geez, he was a he was a real sicko. And yeah, so anyway, I thought it was really good. And I'm on the side of the fence of people who like Ryan Murphy productions. I don't care if they can be camp or silly or ridiculous. I just think he's a really clever and his team, they're really clever storytellers. And so that was really cool. I've also been watching From season 4, and I just think that is an incredible show. It's really good. Harold Perrineau is just knocking it out of the park every week. Unfortunately, that show doesn't get any attention from Emmy voters because it's on MGM Plus. But I highly recommend From as well. I've been on a real horror kick this week, actually, and yeah. So that's pretty much where what I've been watching. What about you, Tony?
It's interesting because I haven't been watching a whole lot. I did start the new season of Beef. Um, I've only seen the first episode. I'm very excited to see where this goes because it feels, in a way, to me, it feels completely different than the first iteration. And which excites me actually because I don't like it when anthology series kind of just like follow the same pattern but then just substitute a different plot or a different thing. I feel like some of the weaker seasons of Fargo sometimes did that. And I just love it when they kind of just take it in a whole different direction, but it has a whole different kind of look, a whole different feel. So I'm really excited about that. I have started I have watched the first two episodes of Spider Noir,
Oh yeah.
which I can't say a lot about because the embargo is still in effect. Um, but it is one of the most gorgeous things, just from pure technical enjoying looking at it. I love the way this looks. It's like reading a black and white comic, in the best possible way. Um, and then I've been catching up. We're getting towards the end of the regular season of broadcast shows. So like all my silly crime procedurals. Will Trent basically did a hard reset, um, with a complete, they killed off not one but two major characters towards the end of the season, and the season finale ends with a flash forward, which basically promises, a season long arc next season, which is very exciting. And one of the things I love about Will Trent is the performance of Erica Christensen. Now, if that name doesn't ring a bell for many of you, some of you might remember her as the drug addicted daughter of Michael Douglas in Traffic. Um, and I remember when I first watched the show, I was like, God, why does she look so familiar? And then I looked at the credits, and it's like, oh my God, it is her. And it's so great to see somebody from a movie that I love from a quarter century ago. Um,
God.
still working hard, still doing great work, and I just think Will Trent is such a great show. ABC's got a good one there, so it's a
Mm.
pity that the Emmys continue to ignore broadcast television, but God, it's good.
You know what? Before I go to you, Charlie, it's interesting how you remember many years ago we would always be saying, "It's a shame the Emmys won't look at cable. It's a shame the Emmys won't look at prestige cable. It's a shame they won't look at streaming because it was all about broadcast." And then it got to the point where there was only one left. I think it was The Good Wife. That continually got nominated. That was the only thing that they could bear to nominate from the broadcast world. And now, forget it. They don't even think about broadcast. It's really hard for them to break through. It's silly. It's dumb. It's annoying. I totally agree with you, Tony. And also with Beef season two, oh, I'm so looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I just finished it as well, actually, and it's like halfway through the season, it goes from being functioning primarily as as a satire to becoming more of a psychological thriller. It's very, very good. So looking forward to that. And I also watched, I forgot, sorry, I'm just still coming to me because of my dementia, Half Man, with the Richard Gadd follow up to Baby Reindeer. It
Mm.
has nothing to do with Baby Reindeer, but wow, it's something else. It's really interesting, compelling. I have no idea where they're going with this, but I'm curious. I'm going to keep watching and see what I think. All right, Charlie, what about you? What are you watching?
I haven't been keeping up with that much. I did start watching a new animated show on Netflix called Strip Law with Adam Scott and Janelle James and Stephen Root, which I'm actually quite charmed by, and I think
Stephen
I'll continue
Roots,
watching.
That
Yep,
yes.
sounds good.
Stephen
Yeah.
Root doing a bang up job in a voice acting role. Um, uh, Let me see here. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I've watched lately, and I don't think so.
Okay. Well, there you go. We can't all just be watching TV constantly every week. Sometimes we actually have to live our lives, and that's totally fine. Okay, let's now pivot into the Emmys because Emmys phase one has really kicked off. It's maybe it's earlier than usual. It's usually by May things really start to happen. I'm hearing a lot of noise from various publicists about
It just
various
feels that way
campaigns.
because the Oscars. It feels that way because the Oscars were so late.
Yeah, I think that's right. We didn't really get a lot of a respite between the two, and the Emmys have really kicked off in force, and that's great. I love the Emmys. So we're going to talk about drama supporting actor, and just like last week, this kind of ends up being a discussion about how awesome The Pitt season two is. Because let's face it, The Pitt could fill up this category just like they could fill up on the female side. And so I'm just going like yes, there's a whole bunch of other very strong contenders in this race. It's a really competitive field. But just from the pit alone, we've got Patrick Ball, Sean Hatosi, who's now moved into supporting. Interesting. We've got, I'm trying to
Darren
find
Howe.
that, yes. And who else?
I think it would pretty much just be those three.
Yeah, okay. You don't think anybody else? I just think like, oh God, there's so many amazing actors on that show. But I guess in terms of real chances at getting nominated, yeah, it's probably those three. I am still confused about Sean Hatosi. Is he moving up because he's not eligible for guest? Is that the reason?
No, he is eligible for guest. I think that was one of the reasons why. Uh, I think that was one of the reasons why it was such kind of like a shocker when he decided to go supporting. He doesn't he doesn't hit the threshold in terms of appearances that he has to go supporting. He chose to go supporting. Um, but I heard, some people think that because Sean Hattasey has gone to supporting, I don't think that takes anything away from Patrick Ball's chances because Patrick Ball has, Langdon has the arc of the season. really with kind of like the return and the quest for redemption for Dr. Langdon. Um, so
Yeah.
and and he has a couple of really just great scenes, particularly in the finale, where he finally tells Robbie, you know, what is what, and you are the one that needs to get help, which I thought was such a great scene. And I was cheering for him because up until that point, he was kind of having doubts. I think those last kind of 3 or 4 episodes of the season, particularly where he has to do that neck kind of reset maneuver,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which was so tense. I think it also helps that he, being on Broadway right now, and he's giving a very acclaimed performance in Becky Shaw. And I think if Alden Ehrenreich had gone lead, which I think he could have for that play, I think Patrick Ball might have gotten a Tony nomination. But Ehrenreich was submitted in featured actor, so I still think that it's Patrick Ball's to lose right now. The problem is I'm having a hard time figuring out who the hell else is going to get nominated.
That's the problem because yeah, Garen Howell is in there. Patrick Ball is leading the contenders over at Gold Derby in the prediction center for good reason. So then this is going to be. I don't think he's as strong, perhaps maybe as Noah Wiley is and Catherine Lanasa is in their categories respectively. But Patrick Ball is certainly a front runner. So then this becomes a calculation about who else is going to make it in. So these are some of the. I will read out now the top contenders from Gold Derby, and then Charles, you let us know what you think. Okay, so Tom Pelphrey from Task to make up for that Ozark snub. Two-time winner Billy Crudup for The Morning Show. Yet again, he's most likely going to make it in. Jack Loudon for Slow Horses, a previous nominee, and I think one of the best things about that show, that amazing show. Carlos Manuel Vesga from Pluribus is right up there in fifth position, so that's great for him. Garen Howell's in sixth. We've got Coleman Domingo from Euphoria, previous nominee. Sean Hatosi, obviously previous winner in the guest categories, in eighth. Jacob Elordi, Oscar nominee. Will he now get an Emmy nomination as well for Euphoria? I'm not sure about Euphoria. I feel like the buzz has come off that show a little in this season. James Marsden from Paradise, fantastic performance as the President of the United States. One that I'm really excited about, Dexter Solar Ansel from A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. He plays Egg, and he's wonderful in that show. And then a couple of contenders from industry, Ken Leung and Kit Harington. And then we start kind of going a bit deeper into people like Ado Asando from The Diplomat, Bill Skarsgård from It, Welcome to Derry, Sam Elliott from Landman, Hugh Laurie from The Night Manager, Jamie Campbell-Bower from Stranger Things, Mark Duplass from The Morning Show, and finally, Babu Chise from Alien Earth. It's a bit of a rogues gallery here. I don't know who the hell's going to make it in. It's very exciting. Charles, what do you think? Who do you think's going to make it in? Let's go. Let's start with that.
Well, I do have all three of those pit men, Patrick Ball, Sean Hattasey, and Garen Howell, getting in. I do have Tom Pelphrey for Task, but I have a feeling if that show is underperforming, he could probably possibly get left behind. I have Billy Crudup returning for The Morning Show. I have Jack Loudon for Slow Horses, who is my low key one I really want to see happen. This past season of Slow Horses was great, and I would love to see him get in. And then rounding that out, I also have Carlos Manuel Vesga. Although I believe he probably could have been submitted in guest. It's interesting that they
Mm,
put him in support, that he went supporting for this. But I like it, and I thought he was fantastic on that show. I will say one, I forgot there is another show. I've been watching some of my screeners for the new AMC show, The Audacity, with
yeah.
Billy Magnuson, and I wouldn't mind seeing Zach Galifianakis get in. I think he's actually quite good in that, even though, of course, I am always down for Billy Magnuson, and Billy Magnuson with curly hair, I am all for. So
Smitten.
yeah.
Yes, smitten. Yeah, that's the Audacity I was watching as well. Zach Galifianakis, I think he just scored a Gotham TV nomination, the only not actor from the show who scored one. That show's really under the radar. People need to actually get onto it. It's very, very good. What about you, Tony? Who do you think's getting in?
I to answer your question about why, maybe why they submitted, Carlos Manuel Vesca in supporting is because it's kind of a barren, group.
Mm.
Outside of the Pit and Billy Crudup, and I think the fact that it is so barren, it makes it easier for Tom Pelfrey to get in. Um, because I think if there was, like, I do, the problem I think is that there's not a lot of other big shows, that, because putting in Coleman Domingo for Euphoria, um, I don't know about anybody else. I feel like the buzz on that show is just, crickets.
No,
Yeah.
that's why I had him in. I had him in for a long time, but I took him out and put in Sean Hannity in his place because I feel like that this third season is just kind of landing with the thud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Levinson. I think there's just too many factors working against it at this point. Plus, I think too much time has passed. I think people are kind of like,
Over
you
it.
know, over it. We have
Yeah. Isn't
enough.
that's interesting? I'm very surprised, actually. Why? Why are they over it? Is it just this, that shows just no longer speak to the moment? Are we tired of it? Like what? What's going on there? It's very strange.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of how I think it's going to be kind of similar to how that second season of Squid Game went over. How after being such a dominant force in that first season, just going absolutely nowhere with that second season at the Emmys.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Speaking of, like, if there's anyone else that we want to raise in terms of who we would like to see nominated, who probably don't really have a chance, but I would love to see Bobby Cannavale from Scarpetta, just to match with my hope prediction for Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm getting a lot of pushback on the Jamie Lee Curtis thing, and I am just going to stand my ground because I think she's awesome. Timothy Oliphant from Alien Earth, I think, was one of the best performers on that whole show. If that show gets ignored, I'm going to be really disappointed. And then also Thomas Doherty, in Paradise is fantastic. Such a good actor, such a good performance, such a great show. Have we missed anyone, guys, that you just want to quickly give a shout out to, or have we pretty much covered our bases? I'm going to take that silence to mean we have covered our bases.
I'm
Um,
just thinking, and I literally can't think of anybody.
Well, isn't this interesting? Like I did say at the beginning, it's a really crowded field. The reason why I still think that is because there's a crowded field of maybe like lesser known or lesser locked in contenders. There's a whole crowd of them that could just make it in and surprise us. And that's cool. I love that. Whereas on the actress side, like we were really struggling to figure out who's going to miss out because there's so many contenders, and perhaps maybe the pit is the reason for that. There's so many really fantastic female actors on the show who are killing it. Whereas, not pardon the pun or pardon the pun, but on the actor side, you're right. There's really only Garen Howell, Patrick Ball, and now Sean Hatosi, and I feel like that could be a reason why HBO Max decided to move Sean up because the pit already has a couple of really excellent, strong guest acting contenders on the male side. And because they've noticed, they can kind of smell blood on the supporting actor side. There is some room there. There's some breathing room to kind of sneak in. And that could be a way for them to get Sean Hatosi in there and then open up a spot for somebody else on the guest side. Because if Sean Hatosi was still on in guest, I would suggest that he'd probably be winning again. So,
Hmm.
um, and I'm telling you now, I'm putting it out there, manifesting. Please make a Pit Night Shift spin-off immediately and have Sean Hatosi lead it. And then in the next Emmys, we can have Sean and Noah Wiley going up against each other in lead, and Sean can go from guest to supporting to lead. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That'd be insane.
It would
That
be
would be
insane.
absolutely insane. Before we go to our top five, I have a letter.
Oh, I
Um,
love
and
letters.
and so this is from David. First of all, to answer your question, Tony, about the new rules regarding international feature, no, the director of the film won't be credited as the nominee. It's the film that is credited and the director's name is on the statue, but they still don't get to keep it. And they're not cited from the Academy Award. They're not cited as Academy Award nominee or winner. I don't understand why it's so hard for the Academy to amend this. Maybe it's because they have to get permission from the 92 countries that submit international films every year, and because the politics in some countries can't get along. It was like they took one big step forward, but then one step back. Also, since Matthew on our last show introduced a new top five idea, I have a list of interesting top fives for you to possibly consider for the podcast. Since Emmy season is still in full swing, would you guys consider doing a top five favorite TV series finales?
Ooh,
I actually think that is a fabulous idea.
I love it. Yeah.
He then proceeds. To give his top five, which I will read, not in a whole lot of detail for the purposes of time. But he cites Breaking Bad, Mr. Robot. I think that is an excellent finale for a show that kind of fell off the rails in the last couple of seasons. 6 Feet Under, yes.
Oh,
Here's a controversial one: the finale of Seinfeld.
oh, I loved it.
Ooh, ooh. And finally, Succession.
Yeah,
That closing shot of Kendall still gazing into the abyss at Battery Park is still haunting.
I
Thank you,
like
David.
it.
That is a wonderful idea.
You
And
know what?
yes,
I think we should do it.
I
We will do it.
I approve this idea.
I approve this message. Okay,
Yes.
so our
I will
favorite part
shake
of
my I will shake my snow globe. And those of you that
yeah.
are old know what I'm talking
Ooh.
about.
Yeah. And they probably still have trauma about that particular issue. Okay. Our favorite part of every show is our top five. And this week we are doing top five best drama supporting actor winners of all time. This is going to be a good one. Charlie, you're going first. What's your number five? Or who's your number five?
Before I get to that, just if you want to write us anything, write us at awardsheaven@gmail.com, or send your most foul, or if you want to leave a voice message, send your most foul mouth voicemail complaints to 804-786-2251. That's 804-786-2251.
I have a
But
question.
perhaps do it from a payphone.
Yes, or a
Maybe.
burner phone. And my question is that one of the judges on the Virginia Supreme Court?
That is that is the number for the Virginia Supreme Court.
Okay, that's what I
That is
thought.
the number for the Virginia Supreme Court.
This gerrymandering thing is going to be the death of us all. But anyway,
Oh, I'm no longer in the lobster district.
no.
So my number five. This one was a little bit easier than last week's. My number five is William Shatner for Boston Legal. William Shatner was so much fun on Boston Legal. I loved him on that show. He was so great, and he really. I love that this like this the la that this is more that this was like a sort of like a cap on his career, to after being the butt of the joke for so many years, to find this role that he was able to, starting on The Practice, being able to really dig into that role. um uh i uh I just always loved him. He always left a smile on my face on that show. So his win in 2005, I was immensely happy for. So that's my number five.
I like that. It's a good one. Who doesn't love Shatner? Come on now.
Steady
Tony,
Crane, Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Steady Crane, Cuckoo for Cocoa
just
Puffs.
insane. He just he
George,
kept winning
the
things.
answer to your question of who doesn't love William Shatner, George Takei.
George Takei, yeah.
That's the answer. That's the only answer. All right, Tony, what's your number five? Who's your number five? Sorry.
My number five goes back to a childhood favorite of mine, and that is Cagney and Lacey, and John Carlin, who played Tyne Daly's husband, Harvey Lacey, on that show, winning in 1986. he was nominated several times, but this was his only win. And John Carlin is one of those great character actors who had, done film and television and stage, but he had been in the original run of Dark Shadows, and he had this kind of fan base built up, and here was a true supporting actor. The show was called Cagney and Lacey. I mean, Sharon Gless and Tyne Daly dominated the lead actors category for 6 years in a row. And but the episode he submitted from that particular season, called Mothers and Sons, is such a great, just perfect episode of Harvey Lacey being the supportive husband to Mary Beth, and there's a lot of issues going on with their oldest son, and he's like the perfect kind of real dad. He's tough. He can lose his temper, but there is so much love behind it. And the whole episode is on YouTube. It's called Mothers and Sons, and I very, very highly recommend it. John Carlin was such a great part of that show, and I think one of the reasons why that show worked as well as it did was because they had this kind of like home base for Mary Beth. And their marriage was one of the most realistic marriages that I ever remember seeing on television, because they fought, they were crazy about each other, they weren't afraid to just dive into difficult stuff. So yeah, that's my number five.
It's a good one. That's a really good one. And that's a deep cut. And I like that because a lot of mine are pretty recent. But the one that isn't recent is my number five, which is Michael Badalucco in The Practice, 1999, turn of the century. The reason why I love this one is because to me, Michael Badalucco was like the underdog, and he's playing Jimmy Belushi, also an underdog, like someone who is always probably underestimated. And maybe Michael Badalucco was like that too. He wasn't really, I didn't know him before The Practice, and since The Practice, I haven't really seen him doing anything that I'm aware of. But he was so good as Jimmy. He was the everyman. He was like the character that the audience was always rooting for. And I remember when he won, similar to what Cameron Manheim had done the year before, it was just like the absolute shock and awe that he had actually finally like achieved this amazing goal in his career. And he was so excited and he was nervous, and you could just see like the gratitude just dripping off him at how much it meant to him to win this award and get this validation from his peers and from the Academy. It's a moment I will not forget ever, and it was a long time ago, and yet I feel like it was only just yesterday. Michael Badalucco is an absolute legend. He beat Benjamin Bratt, Stephen Hill, Noah Wyle, and Steve Harris. That's a killer category. So that's my number five. Okay, number four, Charles.
My number four is Aaron Paul for Breaking Bad, specifically 2010, his first Emmy win for the episode Half Measures. I remember watching that season and watching him in that and just thinking to myself, oh, this is it. This is the one for him. I was predicting that Andre Brower was going to win for Men of a Certain Age, because he also had a killer episode. But I was so pleasantly surprised when Aaron Paul won that. He is so good in that Half Measures episode. And just, I mean, he had already, proved he belonged when he got his first nomination the previous year and submitted the Peekaboo episode, which I still cannot get the sound of that ATM machine slamming on that guy's head out of my head. It's like permanently ingrained in there. But this was the first of three for Aaron Paul. And I love that this character got the justice both on the show and in the awards race that he deserved. He really, really deserved that. And that was such a great win. And plus, he's so fucking adorable. I mean, how could you not? How could you not root for him? I'll never forget when he first came on the screen, when he in the pilot episode, when he's hopping out of his girlfriend's window, bare-assed, and falls off the roof. And I was just like, Who's that?
Yeah, he was nominated first and didn't win, and then everything. I think every time he was then nominated, he would win. I think that's what happened, and that was his first win in 2010.
He
Just
Except
lost
for he lost to
2013. He
Cannavale.
lost. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yes. Okay. So he had a pretty good run. If he was in, it was he was generally going to win, but he lost a couple of times. And what a wonderful actor! What a wonderful performance! And also, just from our experience at Gold Derby, he's also a really really nice person. So good for him. That's a really good choice. Tony, who is your number four?
My number four is Five-ish Finkel for Picket Fences.
That's a good
Now,
one.
Now, I was obsessed with picket fences. I know that Rob, you like to talk about when when picket fences won that second drama series award.
Yeah.
Um, as much as I love, we all know how much I love Star Trek: The Next Generation, but I loved picket fences, and picket fences benefited immensely from the tape system because they knew how to put together Emmy reels, and Five Schfinkel particularly was such a breakout character on that show. Douglas Wambo for whoever the Frogman.
Yeah.
Um, there's a super if there's not a supercut on YouTube of all the Douglas Wambos, there needs to be. But what made that character, and particularly what I think caused him to win in this season, in that particular year, the Emmys went back and forth a long time in the supporting categories where you used to be able to submit one episode, or you could submit a reel of two episodes. There were a couple of years where you could submit a reel of three, and they were just your scenes, just the nominees' scenes edited all together. And he put together a reel that on the front half was very much the Douglas Wambo, larger than life, has no boundaries, comes into every room. Um, but the second part of his reel was a really heartbreaking episode where Wambo is seen as kind of a joke and is kicked out of his synagogue. And Five Finkel, made a name for himself working in the Yiddish theater and doing cabaret acts and just doing all that stuff. He worked for 50 years before he got this part. And there's just really heartbreaking moments where Wambo, you see a completely different side of him, and it was such a wonderful, wonderful tape. Uh, Picket Fences is a show that I really wish it was syndicated for a while, and I can't even find it now. But I would really love to go back and do a rewatch because that show won a lot of Emmys in a
Sure
lot of
did.
categories.
Yeah.
Followed, so much so that 4 seasons on the air, Kathy Baker won 3 out of the 4 years it was on the air. Five Finkel won for season 2, and then Ray Walston, who is an honorable mention in my list, won the following 2 years. So I mean, this is a show that was Emmy, just knew how to win Emmys.
Yeah.
But yeah, Five Finkel, Douglas Wambo for the Emmy.
I love it, love it. I remember when he won. Oh my gosh, it was a great moment on that show. It was, geez, such a long time ago, and yet these memories they endure. My number four is Terry O'Quinn from Lost. I remember going back to 2007. Lost was just like had was such a revelation. It was really just such a huge hit from the get-go, and he has this episode called "The Man from Tallahassee" where we're introduced to John Locke, and it's just perfect. It's a perfect performance. I remember as soon as that episode aired, we as a group back then were talking about this has got Emmy written all over it. I wonder if he can actually go there. I wonder if they'll embrace a show like Lost that has a bit of a sci-fi fantasy element to it. And by God, did they ever. And he was up against his co-star Michael Emerson, who then wins a couple of years later. He was up against Michael Imperioli, T.R. Knight, Marcy Oka, and of course William Shatner. And he was able to win. And I just not only did I love the episode, love the show, love the performance, love him. I've always loved his performances in other things. It was just a really great moment on that particular Emmys for him to win for John Locke. So that's my number four. Okay, Charlie, you're number three.
Before I get to my number three, I just have to say, Five-ish Finkel has a wonderful guest appearance on The Simpsons. Do you know of this guest appearance where
Mhm.
where
Oh yes.
the TV station is doing a made-for-TV movie about the life of Krusty the Clown, starring Five-ish Finkel as Krusty the Clown? So they actually got him to come in and do the voice. And he only has a couple lines in it, but god damn it, does he deliver in those lines. Consummate why he's just such a fantastic actor. My number three is just one of the most beautiful performances ever, and that's John Spencer for The West Wing in 2002. Um uh John Spencer always was so endearing to me as Leo McGarry. Kind of rough on him, but you didn't have to peel too much away for him to really see the soft, good-natured man that was beneath that rugged exterior. Um, he had some of my favorite comedic lines on the show. Comedic uh, this one gets into this was back when you'd submit two episodes, and one of them he submits is this one where it's a flashback to a debate, a presidential debate where Bartlett has an MS flare up before, and he wasn't there because he was at a room with some lobbyists and broke his sobriety and ended up getting completely trashed on Johnny Walker Blue. And it's just an absolutely heartbreaking performance. It's the Bartlett for America episode, and
Hmm.
um, and we see this flashback to how it was Leo's idea for Bartlett to run for president in the first place. And he and when and I love how he explains alcoholism when he goes, I don't just want one drink, I want 10 drinks. And how and when that end of the episode when uh, Bartlett gives him back the napkin that says Bartlett for America on it as his Christmas present. Goddamn, did Aaron Sorkin write great Christmas episodes for the show? Because Bradley Whitford won for the episode of the previous season. Um, and the way he just starts tearing up at the end, it's so good. And I loved his acceptance speech. It was that kind of acceptance speech for someone like a Five-ish Finkel who had been working as a character actor for so long, and to get that recognition. And when he said, "I love acting. It's my opiate. It's why I get up in the morning." And to win, and I love the saying he had at the end of his speech. He said, "And to win something like this is beautifully redundant." Uh, I absolutely love that phrasing, and I've used it several times over my life. So just one of the greats of that show, and just one of my favorite wins. And R.I.P. to the legend John Spencer.
Yeah, RIP for sure. What a legend. My number three is from 2021, and that was.
Tony's number three.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Tony, you're number three. I'm losing the
This is going
plot.
to be quick because my number three is John Spencer.
That was handy. That was handy. Anything
I mean,
further to
literally, it
add?
was. No, I mean, the only question I ever was considering, I knew John Spencer was going to be on my list. It was the first name I wrote down. I wasn't sure where on the list he was going to be. I just find it funny that it ended up in the same place as Charlie's. But
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, Bartlett for America is one of the best episodes of The West Wing. Um,
Yeah.
and he had so many. I mean, whenever Leo lost his temper with Bartlett, you know, I know it's just so great because he's one of the few people throughout that show who can just tell Bartlett the truth, which is what a good
Yeah.
chief of staff is supposed to be.
Yeah. That's
Take notes,
so
Susie
relevant.
Wiles.
Take notes. Well, she probably can't take notes, probably doesn't write properly.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Okay.
I loved
My
any interaction he had with his secretary, with
yes.
Margaret.
Hmm.
Margaret! I just love the
Margaret.
way he would yell out her name, and when he hires the conservative Ann Coulter like girl, and she's on the well, she'll be glad to hear it. She's
Kingsley
on the other side of the
Hayes.
door, then bangs the door, and you hear "ow."
Oh, Margaret. Okay. Now, as I was saying, my number three is from 2021, and that is Tobias Menzies as Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh in The Crown. The Crown season four won almost everything that year. It was just a sweep. A lot of the cast were in London. It was the year of Gillian Anderson as well as Margaret Thatcher, one of the best performances on TV that I've ever seen. Honestly, I was completely enraptured by her performance. But with Tobias, I was always concerned that people would overlook him because there was, the Gillian performance, and of course, obviously, the rest of the main cast was so strong. But season four was The Crown at its absolute peak. And I was a little biased because Tobias Menzies, I always really admired him on Outlander as Jack Black. And I was just like, I was really fascinated that they were able to give him that award. It was a really tough category. There was Giancarlo Esposito, there was Oti Benley, John Lithgow, Max Minghella, Chris Sullivan, Bradley Whitford, and Michael K. Williams, who a lot of us thought would win posthumously for Lovecraft Country. And the fact that they didn't go down that road and just kept going with their love affair for the crown, there was a bit of criticism and pushback on that. People were like, oh, I missed the tapes. This is just a popularity contest. I know we don't like sweeps. We don't like this. And I hear you, and I totally agree that I prefer the tape system and I prefer the spreading of wealth. But in this particular instance, I just thought the Crown season four was so good that I was totally fine with it winning almost everything. And Tobias Menzies so overdue for some recognition and some love, and he got it. And now I can always say Emmy winner Tobias Menzies, and that makes me very happy. Okay, Charles, number three.
Two.
Two.
My number
See,
two.
see how I'm losing the plot? I'm completely losing the plot today. That's okay.
You're losing your leaves. My number My number two is this is another bit of overlap. It's Terry O'Quinn for Lost. I
Hmm.
remember watching that third season of Lost was so incredible, especially because at the finale, when you realize at the end that it's not a flashback, it's a flash forward, and I remember watching that just going, "What the fuck? That's insane!" But this was the kind of episode that we were waiting for because we John Locke was always one of the most interesting characters on the show, but the idea of how did he get in a wheelchair in the first place, and then the man from Tallahassee came out and we saw why, and boy did it. It's one of those things where we were waiting for that episode, that explanation episode, and boy did it deliver. He gives a bang up performance, and once I saw that I said he's probably going to win. I was a bit. I was predicting him. I was a bit nervous because I was worried about the final season of The Sopranos and Michael Imperioli being there. But I was so happy. This was, again showing how the tapes worked, and oh man, that was such a great win. He also is just, he was so effortlessly charming while he was up on stage, saying, so looking at the women of Wisteria Lane, wishing I could be baking cookies with them and getting one of their paychecks. It's just absolutely epic. And I love that, I don't, I haven't seen him in much since Lost. I don't know. He's also getting older, so he may have retired. I honestly don't know. But no matter what, you can't take away that performance and you can't take away that Emmy from him because it was so goddamn well deserved.
So well deserved. What about you, Tony?
Okay, my number two was almost my number one. I literally, my number two and my number one are so close together that in my heart that I ultimately just had to make a choice. And my number two is Jelko Ivanek for the first season of Damages. Um, Specifically, the episode he submitted, I Hate These People, is such a, you want to talk about a heartbreaker, showstopper, and gasp inducing, an episode that literally took my breath away. I think the first season of Damages is one of the finest seasons of television I have ever seen. And that entire slow burn of Ray Fisk and the peeling back of the layers, all leading to that climactic moment where he leaves the room comes back with a gun and just shoots himself in front of Glenn Close. It's one of the most amazing performances, and Jelko Ivanek is one of those journeyman actors. That might be kind of a through line in a lot of my in pretty much all of my selections. Is Jelko goes all the way back to to Broadway. He was in the original company of Brighton Beach Memoirs. He was nominated for a Tony in '83 that Matthew Broderick won. And he keeps going back to the theater. He shows up in this and that and this and that, and he's the quintessential. Oh, hey, it's that guy. And to see him get that, and he got this kind of sustained ovation, that I think people were just like, oh my god, this guy is just one of those great character actors. So and it's again a all due to the tape system.
Oh yeah.
I'm convinced that's why he won.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, my number two is no real surprise here is Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos. Particularly, this was season four. I don't know what is it about season four for my favorite shows, but The Sopranos was cooking in season four. It was probably the best season to me. It's the same season, obviously, that Dre DiMatteo one. Same episodes, irregular around the margins and long-term parking. I literally just got goosebumps thinking about long-term parking when he's walking through the long-term car park with that droning announcement as he's just like aimlessly walking through, knowing what he has done. How dare you do that to Adriana? How dare you? But what it did is it just goes to show that when you're a made man in the mafia, that takes precedence over everything else, even the one that you love the most. And it broke my heart. His performance in The Sopranos was amazing from the get-go to the very end. Incredible actor, incredible character. I was very happy that he won. He was up against Steve Buscemi from the same show as Tony Blundetto, John Spencer, of course, Brad Dourif, who played Doc Cochran in Deadwood. What an amazing nomination for him. And Victor Garber in Alias, who was never able to win, but was nominated a few times as Jack Bristow. That is just a killer category, man. And Michael Imperial, but I always just thought this is the one for Michael. Those two episodes just goes to show once we keep saying this, but the tapes really matter. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could go back to that system? It's probably never going to happen, but yeah, it was a real moment for me as a Sopranos fan, and I just remember how I felt sitting on the couch watching that happen, and just thought I felt really validated for the Sopranos that they were finally winning some really really decent awards apart from the two leads. Okay, here we go. Number one plus any honorable mentions, Charlie.
So, amongst my honorable mentions, the one winner I will put in there is our reigning champion, Tramel Tillman, for Severance. That was such a great win for him. But other honorable mentions of nominees, I would say, Freddie Rodriguez on 6 Feet Under. I've talked about how great Gregory Itzin was in that fifth season of 24 in 2006. Walton Goggins getting nominated for Justified back in 2011. Both Josh Charles and Alan Cumming for The Good Wife. They were both fantastic on that show. Giancarlo Esposito for Breaking Bad in 2012, and also Oh Young-soo in Squid Game in 2022. And also I have to put Alan Ruck making it in for the final season of Succession a couple of years ago. That was a great one too. But my number one, I have to correct you, Rob, that was the fifth season of The Sopranos.
Oh, sorry, my
Because
bad. Yeah,
my number one is for the fourth season of The Sopranos, and it's Joe Pantoliano
Joey
winning for The
Pants.
Sopranos,
oh my
winning
God.
in 2003. Part of that epic season, and then for me, season four is the best season of The Sopranos, without question. And Joe Pantoliano is so great playing this just absolutely detestable, awful man, Ralphie Cifaretto. But I remember first seeing him in like The Matrix and Memento, and then the way and for his character to have that storyline and then go out the way that he did, in a way that was actually really satisfying, was so great. And I love that he went there in that purple satin tuxedo. I just thought he looked so cool. And I also loved how it was presented to him by Michael Chiklis. And then he opened the envelope. He said, the Emmy goes to my friend, Joey Pants. And just, oh man, that was such a great moment. You know, another one of these great, I think it's one of the great things of this category is that this category is really great at awarding veteran character actors who have never gotten their due, who will get their due in this category. Um, and just he was so deliciously evil as Ralphie Cifaretto. If it weren't for him, and if it weren't for that episode Whitecaps, uh, I don't think that season would work as well as it did. He's one of my all time favorites. And I just was so happy when he was able to win that one. That was a great win, and it's my personal favorite.
Wow. Okay, Tony, go for it.
My honorable mentions would be of course, big shock, Will Gear for the Waltons, the
Mhm.
heart attack episode that I talked about last week. Um, but also Ray Walston for Picket Fences, Hector Elizondo winning randomly for Chicago Hope was a pure benefit of the tape system. He had a really great episode where his character was dealing with the suicide of his son. And it was just a masterclass. Um, Gordon Clapp, who played the kind of occasionally bumbling Detective Medavoy on NYPD Blue, um, one of my favorite shows of all time. But my number one is Michael Imperioli for The Sopranos. It was the second name I wrote down, but it was fated that that combination of episodes of irregular around the margins and long-term parking, um, you know, and Christopher was not always an easy character, uh, like so many people on that show. Was sometimes a rotten, terrible, awful human being, but he was also so very clearly a victim of the environment that surrounded him. And I think one of the things that's so great about The Sopranos is that it's very much it's constantly addressing this nature versus nurture. It's kind of at the core of, you know, Tony's interactions with Dr. Melfi, and, you know, to see that character hit absolute rock bottom, and yet somehow there's still this humanity to him. You want to kick him in the balls repeatedly for the things that he does, but you can't hate him. And that was the tightrope that show managed to traverse better than just about any show that's ever been on television. So that was an easy number one for me.
It's
I
one
do
for the
want to
ages.
I do want to just add one thing that I also loved about Joe Pantoliano's win is backstage. Someone asked him about his character being whacked, and he said, "No, no, 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 no. A whacking is a sanctioned mafia hit. I was killed in cold blood." Just making
It's
sure
the
the press
perfect
understood.
response. The
But
perfect
also,
response.
has there ever been any funnier scene on The Sopranos than after they behead Ralphie and they pick his head up and the toupee comes off?
Toupee comes off.
I mean, is there a funnier moment on The
Here's
Sopranos?
how here's how iconic that was. At the end of the year in 2003, Time Magazine would do like a photo spread of like people that were big pop culture, and one of them was of Joe Pantoliano, and it was his head in a bowling ball bag.
Oh my
That's how they
God.
photographed him. It was brilliant.
And just as an aside, because Joe Pantoliano is one of my honorable mentions, and I love him a lot because he was also on another show called Easy Streets, which unfortunately did not last the season. It was an incredible show on broadcast, and it was in this period of American TV history where broadcast was starting to kind of fall off a bit. The shows, when like if a show wasn't a really big hit out of the gate, it was just yanked after a few episodes. Whereas if Easy Streets had been made a little bit later on Prestige cable, premium cable, sorry, or on streaming, it probably would be running for 5 seasons. And he was so good on that, and I'm so glad he won for The Sopranos. But mine, this is so interesting, Tony, because our number one and two are the same, just flipped. And I could have easily flipped them as well. But Željko Ivanik is my number one, without a doubt. There was no question. He was the first one I wrote down, and he will always be my number one winner in this category for the rest of time. He was up against Ted Danson in the same show, Michael Emerson, William Shatner, and John Slattery in Mad Men. And I remember when the finale aired on FX, and sitting there on my couch or wherever I was, I just remember sitting there, and I remember how I felt. I was like, I've just witnessed one of the best performances on a drama series that I've ever seen. And since that day, it's still in my top five. It was so heartbreaking, and it was so compelling. And I thought, I wonder if the Emmys will ever go for this. I just don't know. Like FX, they were still kind of flirting with basic cable. Will they do it? He gets the nomination. Okay, great. Is he going to submit the episode? Yes, of course. I hate these people. Will he win? Yeah, I don't know. Some of us were thinking it's a possibility. Some of us were thinking it's probably going to be William Shatner, or we didn't quite know. And then he won the standing ovation, and it kept going. And you could see on his face was like he couldn't believe it. And we all couldn't believe it. It was such a moment for a journeyman actor. It was just like the same feeling that we had for Margot Martindale, the same feeling we had for Anne Dowd. Actors that we all recognize, that aren't huge stars, that aren't huge celebrities, but for some reason they just keep getting these great roles, but we're never quite making it into like a category. He finally did it. He won. He's incredible, and I just love that so much. My other honorable mentions, by the way, are Bobby Cannavale in Boardwalk Empire. I thought that was just an incredible win for him. Michael Emerson in Lost, I've mentioned him a few times, and some nominees. Like there's so many great nominees in this category that never really had a chance, but the Succession guys were all great. Especially when they finally gave that nomination to Alan Ruck. I felt like he was always just missing out. It was so good to see him in there. Christopher Walken in Severance, Park Hae-soo in the first season of Squid Game, and more recently, I was really impressed that they were able to nominate like James Marsden in Paradise. I keep going on about Paradise, but it's such a great show, and he is so good in that show as well. So yeah, that's my number one. That's it for our top five. That's a really we had some overlap this time, because I think there were just some absolute no-brainers. If you don't have some of these in there, then you're obviously, what are you smoking? Okay, everybody. That was a really fun chat. Stick with us for next week. We will have more fun and frivolity on the Awards Heaven podcast. But in the meantime, please like, comment, subscribe, write us an email to awardsheaven@gmail.com. You never know, we might read it out. And if you have a top five suggestion like David did, we might even read out your top five and may even use that for a future episode. So stick with us. We really appreciate all your comments. We really appreciate your viewership. And we are just so excited to talk more and more about awards as we get closer and closer to Emmy nomination morning. All right, everybody. See you next week.